Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe podcast. I am your host, Joe, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Joe.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's another time, another place for another episode of Story Time with the Joes. Joe, I wanted to tell you this story that happened to me today in the first movie episode, but I completely forgot. So Joseph, I'm in the city of oceans, in the jerseys of news, and I went for a run today. I'm in my short shorts, I'm shirtless, I'm running around, and I got my hat and my sunglasses on, and I'm sweating up a storm, and I'm like, whew, my God. And so I'm running back, and all these cars are kind of parked at this intersection, and I'm running on the sidewalk, and I noticed that this one car has all of the windows just rolled down, and I'm not looking really or anything, and I'm just running, and all I hear is this cat call, and I turn, and it's like 4 or 5 like 30-year-old Hispanic women in this car, and they go, keep working, Poppy. And I'm like, oh my God, and they're waving at me, and I wave back, and I just keep running, and I'm like, did that just happen? Because there was other people on the sidewalk, and they definitely heard it. I died inside.
That is very funny, but you should. You gotta be a man, and you gotta walk up to them and let them know, you're taken, your heart is reserved, your hand in marriage has already been saved for good old Reggie.
Me and Reggie forever.
You and Reggie forever, man. All right, what are we talking about today, Joe? We're talking about motherfucking comics.
Men and women, and those who don't align with any of those, in tights. Maybe not in tights. Doesn't have to be tights, but primarily get them in tights.
Get them in tights. That's what you got. You got to get them in tights, Joe. But yeah, so we got a few things to talk about. Mostly me got a few things to talk about, and then we have one thing to talk about at the very end, which is how we're structuring I'm letting you know that's how we're structuring the video right now. I got 3 things, Joe, and I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, and then we can, spend some more time just talking about Wonder Girl, because I got some thoughts on this. Not as much as you might think, but I got some, all right?
I have thoughts as well, so go.
All right, so we're going to start off strong here. We're talking about Batman, number 110. This is the, whatchamacallit, the arc that still has Tynion on as writer and Jorge Jimenez on as art. Art, off the top, again, it's great. It's still friggin' incredible. It's like a mangaka and a comic artist had a baby, and that baby also had a little bit of Jesus thrown in there, and you just like, oh my God. Art is just phenomenal. But the story is still kind of not whack is the word, but not exactly, it's not holding up as much as I would like it to. It's basically a continuation of like the prequel to Future State story stuff, because again, like in the last issue, Batman came face to face with Peacekeeper 01, who was just created by Simon Saint, who is being controlled or is in cahoots with the Scarecrow. There's a lot of shit going on in this. A lot of
cahootin'
and canoodlin' and some other verb. But whatchamacallit, we have the Batman and Peacekeeper fight still going on, and so they're just fighting for a bit. They're doing the general talk back and forth where it's like, Batman, you can't beat me, and Batman's like, but I can, and he does something, and then he's like, but I'm prepared for that, and it's just like, the dick measuring contest, and you're like, okay, I've seen this before. Only thing that's really keeping it interesting is that it's fucking Jorge Jimenez drawing it. So then we go on to whatchamacallit. Batman gets away from Peacekeeper. He gets picked up by Ghostmaker. Ghostmaker, and Harley Quinn all at their rundown Batcave area. Harley Quinn, again, she's like a good guy now. She's kind of like turned over a new leaf since Joker War. But Harley reveals that the guy who's Peacekeeper now, Sean Mahoney, who worked at Arkham, is a massive prick. And no one knows this because when Arkham burned, all of like their personnel files got burned with them. So like no one knows what kind of an asshole this guy really is, which is quite evident when after he became like the powerful peacekeeper meant to protect the city, he kind of becomes an asshole and just a bully. And so they're like, oh no, this is bad. And so Peacekeeper goes off to find Miracle Molly and the Unsanity Collective, which we established earlier, like in the series. They're not bad. They just have a different point of view, but they're also not radical. So they're just like, we're just going to try and do our own thing, and we're not trying to hurt anyone, so just leave us alone, and everything will be groovy, okay? And Batman was like, yeah, fair enough, will do. So Peacekeeper goes there. They tried to evacuate everyone, meaning Miracle Molly and whoever else was in charge. They're like, all right, we got to get the fuck out of here. And Peacekeeper shows up, and Miracle Molly is there with some tiny child who was like, oh, Miracle Molly, I stayed back to help you with something. And she's like, oh, you dumb fool. And then all the friggin' soldiers show up, and she's like, Miracle Molly, that is. I want to just call her Molly, but I feel like I have to add the miracle. Like, it's like I'm contractually obliged. But she holds the child behind her. She's just like, okay, stay behind me. We're surrendering, all right? And the last page is just Peacekeeper holding his earpiece and going, sir, they're putting up resistance. And then Simon Saint going, you must take them in at any cost. And he's like, understood. And I'm just like, okay, fuck you, Peacekeeper 01. So we're going to see how that turns out in the next issue.
Damn, Peacekeeper 01 a real dick.
Yeah, he's not a good guy. But that was made pretty evident when Harley Quinn was like, oh, yeah, he's a real asshole. And I was like, that's kind of clunky, but okay. I kind of got that just from the way he was acting. But yeah, so that's what's going on in Batman. Art, great. Story, this is like part either 4 or 5 of this story arc. And I'm still like, let's get it going, because it still doesn't really feel like a whole lot is going on. Even though there's a lot going on, it just doesn't feel like a whole lot is going on. So hopefully that wraps up in a fulfilling way, or at least satisfying somewhat way. But not looking the best so far. But moving on to something that is equally worrying, we have Swamp Thing number 5. Yeah, this you didn't see this coming, did you? So if you remember, last week I talked about the Absolute Editions of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing in the Rapid Fire Megasodes. Go back and watch those. Very fun videos. This is the Swamp Thing, the 10-issue mini-series by Ram V. And there is a different artist on this one. I didn't write it down, but it's a different artist. I didn't like it. The art's, in your words, Joe, art's not bad, but... and then insert other reasoning here. I just didn't like it. I didn't vibe with it. I was like, this isn't the same Swamp Thing that I had going on. If you have a 10-issue miniseries and you switch out the artist for like one of those issues, why? Like that just, I hate that. I like when the artist is consistent throughout everything, or you have like a different artist for each different thing. And if you just have one odd one out, I'm like, no, thank you. So the art was weird. We do have John Constantine, which is cool. Cool to see him in this again. But that's pretty much it. The story kind of follows, like, there's like a bomb under a building, and the power of an idea or like a dream or something is in this bomb, and so it grabs hold of someone, and it's like manifesting shit coming out of them. It's like pipes and crap. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And so something has to like go under the ground and like takes the bomb and goes to some other place with it, and then he just lets it explode. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? And like in there, Constantine is doing some other magic-y, wimey-timey bullshit stuff. And then it just ends. And then presumably we're going to go back to whatever the fuck the rest of the story was going to be in the previous issues. So I'm like, you can probably skip issue 5 of the Swamp Thing and just pick it up again at issue 6. So not too hot.
This is kind of like the Bount arc in Bleach.
It kind of feels that way, yeah. So you would love this. Joe, I'd recommend you pick up number 5 and none of the rest of the series.
It's not that oh man, I feel like the Bount arc has become basically like a philosophical debate, like does free will exist? Is there life after death? Is the Bount arc actually good? They're all synonymous.
Questions we will never have the answers to. All right, and then my final book before we get into Wonder Girl is Geiger #4. That's right, I said my final book before we get into that because Noctera did come out this week, but I have cared so little about that book as time has gone on that I've completely dropped it. So unless that book gets radically good in the next couple of issues, I will not be picking up any of the subsequent issues. I probably won't even pick up the trade when that comes out because I'm very much like whatever to that book right now. So Noctera, get out of here! Just with Geiger now. And Geiger, being written by Jeff Johns and drawn by Gary Frank, one of my favorite creative combos in all of comics. I fucking love these guys. This story, again, picks up where the last one left off, directly there, where Tariq, a.k.a. the glowing man is what they call him. He's the green skeleton guy you see on the covers. He is going on a radioactive road trip with Haley and Henry, the two kids that he rescued in the previous issue. Where they're going, I don't exactly know. I don't know if they've already told us and I just forgot, or if it's just like they're just getting away right now, but they're on a radioactive road trip. They run into the Organ people, though. And Joe, what do you think the Organ people are?
Are you saying Oregon or organ?
Organ, as in like a stomach or a spleen or a lung.
Are they cannibals?
Half true. Because they live in the radioactive wasteland without suits, they constantly have to replace their own organs, so they will kill people, take their organs, replace theirs, and also eat them. Yep, so, I mean, like, 9 out of 10 neighbors, if you ask me. Anyway, they run into those guys. They have a good little fight with them. Again, drawn by Gary Frank, who is so good. And so it's just a bit of a punch him up, and they're doing all that sort of stuff. And in that fight, the kids are trying to get away. And Haley, the older sister, gets out in order to try and, like, run away or go check on something. And one of the Organ people... I can see how you would get confused. I'm really just slurring that, aren't I? Organ people are lying on the ground, and they grab her ankle. And she's like, oh no! And then he gets shot in the head, and you're like, what the fuck? And then you look up on a hill, and there's like an army of like people in biohazard suits, and they're just like, hello! And then the issue ends, and you're just like, what the fuck was that? So, glowing man and the two kids going on a road trip. They're rescued by some army of some kind, and I'm intrigued to see what that would be.
Interesting. I gotta say, wow. I know you had mentioned dropping Noctera, but to really do it, it's pretty wild. And do you think is there any chance you drop Geiger at all after this? I mean, this issue seems like it's got you a little more interested, but. How are you feeling with it going into the future?
The thing is, I am much more invested in these guys because of like their previous works that I really love. Like, I love Scott Snyder and Tony Daniels. One of the first comics I ever got was a Deathstroke trade that was drawn by Tony Daniels. So like, he holds a special place in my heart, and I will forever be grateful to Scott Snyder for his entire New 52 Batman run, and the original Death Metal or Dark Knight's Metal, not Death Metal. But yeah, just for whatever reason, those two working on one book, it was too Snydery. Like, when you read a certain author for a time, you kind of notice the tropes of their writing styles. And reading Noctera, I was very much like, this is so Scott Snyder, and not in a good way. Like, he's not like reinventing anything of his like writing stuff. So I was very much like, fuck this. And also Tony Daniels' work, I'm like, this isn't stuff that I'm really interested. Like, all the monsters just look like garbly, goopy nonsense, and I'm like, whatever. I don't really care that much about it. Geiger is a little bit more interesting just as a premise to me. And the art, I just think I like it better than Tony Daniels' art, but that's just personal preference stuff. So I don't foresee myself dropping Geiger at least for a couple of, unless it like really goes nowhere for the next couple of issues. I'll probably just keep sticking with it.
Okay, sounds good. So let's get into Wonder Girl, eh?
Yeah, let's get into some Wonder Girl.
All right, Joe. This cover, man. Whew. Whew. I love
Thumbnail of the
it.
video.
So fucking sick. The blues, the way the snake looks, awesome. Absolutely awesome. And also, these first couple of pages with Yara, and I believe her name is pronounced Iara, the slash mermaid slash siren. If you know, I don't really know quite
Yes.
the difference. I think it's gorgeous, absolutely amazing. The way they're kind of like dancing around each other, and that golden ball and chain is looping around them. Gorgeous. I was hooked. I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my god. I literally spent like 5 minutes just looking at the details because Iara looks amazing. Um, and then there's a second artist in this book, Joe.
Yep.
Not a big fan of this second artist.
Yep.
He draw here, I believe it's a he. Um, the full bodies, like actual like full bodies from a distance. Real no go. There's a couple of them where it's
That's
like
gonna be a no from me. That's gonna be a big. I have the friggin' the lights that whatchamacallit, the people on the tarmac use when they're directing planes. I got those two, and I'm doing big no. It's gonna be an X. That's a big no.
like the close-ups of the faces and maybe chest up are fine. Like they don't bother me. But there's one in that first introduction of his work where it's the character, I believe they're trying to introduce the Egyptian pantheon. If that makes sense, because one of the settings, it like in that first page, it says it takes place in Egypt. I'm not
Yes.
100% sure though. Maybe I'm
It's
wrong.
Are you talking about when like the Artemis is like looking at the person giving their prophecy or whatever?
Yeah, the woman with like the really cool nose ring that goes into her ear.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's in Egypt.
Yeah. So for some reason, I'm thinking, oh, maybe they're trying to incorporate like some Egyptian stuff. I don't know, but that I also say that because how you were talking about in the last Wonder Woman, that like, oh, maybe they're going to incorporate more pantheons and stuff like that. I was like, oh, maybe they might have to do something with Egypt. I don't know, but like the up close ones of that guy's artist, like kind of like chest up or the face stuff, not bad. Like it's fine. But there's one I think of Artemis with wearing the red where she's like walking somewhere and it's so zoomed out where it's like you can't really give too much detail, but oh my god, the proportions are so weird. It's like it's hard to explain, Joe. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's a little whack. I don't have it exactly in front of me, but I definitely do remember looking through that and being like, this ain't what I remember.
Yeah. So second artist in this book, it's a big jump from the first. Down into a crevice, not up. Just to clarify. Supergirl is in this. I don't know why, and I really don't care, and it feels really weird. Maybe other people don't feel that way, but I found it very strange. So that happened, and there was a fight on the plane with Yara because now she has been, she gets spit back up after she gets that kind of gold ball and chain from Yara. And the bus driver guy's like, okay, I'm going to fly you somewhere safe. And we're going to get you to this. And he's like, okay, whatever. And she gets like free clothes because he had like a lost and found. It's kind of awkward dialogue, I would say. And on the plane, she gets in a fight with these two quote unquote Amazons that are like, their armor is kind of like casual wear. And at least I thought, this fight on the plane was super fucking awkward.
It was so strange. It was because like it happened so quickly.
She's like,
It's
I
just all
can
of a
handle
sudden-
this, and he's
Yeah.
like, girl, what?
She gets up and she's just like, oh yeah, I've had a lot of scraps and like back in the States or whatever. I think she's something about a police record too. And I was like, wait, what was that again? And she just like. So what I came to find out while reading this, I don't know if you picked up on this as well. She apparently didn't have any powers pre dance with Yara in the water. Like that's when her powers were awakened, when she like grabbed the weird whip ball and chain thing. Because then she's like fighting against these two Amazons on the plane, and she like sends the one flying, and the bus driver guy's like, "Whoa, how did you do that?" And she's like, "Wait, did I do that?" And then she like kicks one of the carts, like the snack carts, and it just bores a hole through the side of the plane. And she's like, "What the fuck?" So I was like, "Wait a minute, you tell me you don't even have powers yet?"
Yeah, that was it was just so weird. Like it didn't make sense to me. I was like, this seems really forced. And that fight, it's over so fast, and she takes down these two girls so easily. And then next thing you know, the plane has just landed, like it crash landed somewhere, and we're confronted with the god Eros. I believe the grandson or son of Hera. And Zephyros is also there, the god of the West Wind, or it's the West Wind, right? Right.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's drawn really cool. I didn't pick up on it at first. I had to do a double take. I'm like, oh wait, the cloud is kind of like making a person, and that's why the plane landed. Like it didn't blow up. Because at first I'm like, wait a
Right.
second. I'm like, wouldn't the plane just fucking crash and everybody would die? I'm like, wait, no, Zephyros was there. Cool detail. And then Eros is there, where I assume he's basically an equivalent to Cupid, because they talk about how when you get struck
He
with
got love arrows.
yeah, love arrows, and I guess they're trying to hint at something between his dreamy eye, like him and his dreamy eyes, and Yara, and that he was sent by Hera to retrieve Yara. I don't fully understand it, and I'm a little lost. Again, this is the second issue, so it probably makes sense, but yeah, Wonder Girl #2, kind of all over the place.
Yeah, it was very whack. It honestly reminds me of an inverse of Fantastic Four Life Story, where first issue, all over the place, not focused at all, and I was very much like, what the fuck? Second issue, immense glow up because when it managed to, like, hang on, what? Too much speed in my mouth. It managed to focus up and, like, actually decide what it wanted to, like, talk about. The first issue of this I thought was good. It wasn't as good as Fantastic Four Life Story #2, but the first issue of Wonder Girl was like pretty solid. It raised some interesting questions. One artist throughout the entire thing, and then 2 months later, we get the second issue, which has two artists on it, which is a big hit for me because I really enjoy Jordan Bell. Is it Belair or just Bell?
I
I think it's
believe
just
that I don't know. This is the one time I don't have the comic book in front of me.
It's okay. I have the internet. Not an @ sign. I need a #2 sign. If we look, Joelle Jones. I'm an idiot. Yeah, it's Joelle Jones's art is like such a big
Amazing.
reason
Love
why I
it.
get this book. Yeah, it's just so cool. And then so like yeah, #1, you don't have her art throughout the entire thing, and then #2, the story is like this and this and this and that and that and that and this and this and this and that, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Yeah, yeah. And other thing I wanted to bring up is the last kind of page is like this big shot of Eros, and behind him there's this person where it's like this bald black head with like glowing blue eyes. I'm like, who is that supposed to be? Is that supposed to be like Hades or something?
Yeah, I have no idea. That could be West Wind Boy again. I don't know. Uh,
Very confused.
yeah.
But this is all the one thing that carries over from the first issue that still hasn't been, I guess, divulged is they're making a big deal that all it's kind of like a signal has been sent out that like, oh my god, Yara Flor is back. And it's like
Yeah.
they made a big deal about it in the first one where it's like almost like once she touched down in her homeland, it like everybody sensed it and it was like a big
It's
deal.
like the fucking coin from Pirates of the Caribbean when
Yes.
Keira Knightley falls into the water and sends out the pulse. Like Yara Flor steps onto the ground and then just like pulse, and then everyone's like, oh,
And they still continue with that in this, but it's not as dramatic. It's, these two Amazons that were on the plane are looking for her. It's the Egyptian lady and Supergirl. It's all, they still haven't figured out like what's wrong with Yara.
Or what does her coming back mean for the rest of the Amazons? Because it's only like the Amazons really seem to be caring about that. I mean, like everyone, there was that amazing double page in the first issue where like it seemed like everyone sensed something was going on, but like what does it mean? And obviously, like Joelle Jones intends to get to that. That's clearly like the end game of at least this arc or future stories or something like that. But I'm really curious because it seems like it has massive ramifications.
Yeah.
But I'm worried it's not gonna live up to what we think it is.
Yeah, yeah. I completely have that worry, and I think I'm just gonna move past issue 2. Again, not terrible. It's not terrible. The cover's great. There's the arts besides the second artist is great. And again, the second artist, it's really not terrible. It's not. It's like I said,
it's just jarring going from Joelle Jones to this person who's a similar style, but they're not Joelle Jones.
It was not the right move to go with 2 artists on this. So hey, hopefully Wonder Girl number 3 will be better, kind of be back on track. But Joe, we got to talk about what we're getting this week.
Hell yeah. It's a light week, and I'm pretty sure I know exactly what you're getting.
I only got one again.
Yep, and I've got 2. I don't know what the release schedule is for these Wonder Woman books, but it seems like it's all over the place because Wonder Woman number 775 is coming out next week. And I feel like I've talked about this series like 3 weeks in a row.
I think you have.
Not counting this week, obviously, but both the megasodes, and then next week's episode will be following Wonder Woman in her standalone series. So I got that to look forward to, and then only one other book as well. That is going to be the one that you were also picking up, and that is going to be Spider Shadow number 4?
4.
We're already on to 4. Good God. I can't believe that. That series has been breezing by.
Yeah, they've been that's one where it's like they've been pretty good with like the release date, and for some reason in the back of my mind I always think, I'm like, oh man, if they push this back, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so it's just gonna be those 2 books that we're gonna be talking about next week, so we can really whatchamacallit, dive into. I feel like we should dive more so into Spider Shadow because that's probably gonna have more to talk about, and like just the series as a whole. That's going to be fun to look back on and see.
Yeah, there's a turning point that happened at the end of 3, so it's like I want to know what the fallout is.
Hell yeah. Do you have any other comments to make on any of the comics that we talked about this week, though?
No. I have faith in Wonder Girl. I think Yara's pretty awesome. I'm going to still stick with this, but yeah, that second issue, it's a you know what I mean?
It's a definite out of 10 from us. So, with that being said, everyone, please make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, all that wonderful YouTube shizness. You know the deal. Let us know what you think of any of the comics that we talked about here today. Let us know any of the comics that you're reading yourself. I'd be very interested to see what anyone else is reading. Yeah, and with all that being said, everyone, we love you, we'll leave you, and a goodbye.